Hey everyone, before we dive into tonight's journey, take a moment to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy these deep dives into history's darkest corners. Share this with a friend who thinks they could handle medieval combat, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to see our communities spread across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe grab a warm drink, and let's transport ourselves back to a world where survival wasn't guaranteed and death wore chainmail. You think you'd survive a medieval battlefield. You've watched the movies, played the games, maybe even swung a sword at a Renaissance fair. You imagine yourself charging forward with righteous fury, your blade cutting through enemies like some legendary hero. You picture the glory, the honor, the songs that would be sung about your courage. But here's the thing, you wouldn't last a minute, not because you're weak or cowardly, but because nothing, absolutely nothing, could prepare you for the sensory hell that was medieval warfare. The moment you stepped onto that blood-soaked earth, every assumption you've ever had about combat would shatter like glass against stone. Let me paint you the real picture. It's dawn, and you're standing in a field that yesterday was peaceful farmland. Now it's about to become a graveyard. The morning mist clings to the ground, but it's not romantic. It's hiding the bodies from yesterday's skirmish, the ones that couldn't be cleared away in time. Your nose catches the first hint of what's coming. Death has a smell, and it's already seeping up from the soil beneath your feet. Your armor, which felt so impressive when you put it on, now feels like a prison. The chainmail weighs 40 pounds, pressing down on your shoulders like the hand of some invisible giant. Every breath is an effort. The helmet narrows your vision to a slit, and already you're sweating, even though the battle hasn't begun. You try to adjust your grip on your sword, but your palms are slick with nervous perspiration, and the leather handle keeps slipping. Around you, hundreds of other men stand in formation, but they're not the gleaming knights of legend. They're farmers and blacksmiths, tanners and merchants, pulled from their normal lives and handed weapons they barely know how to use. Some are boys who've never seen violence beyond a tavern brawl. Others are old men whose best fighting days are decades behind them. The lucky ones have fought before. You can tell by their hollow eyes and the way they flinch at sudden sounds. The enemy army appears across the field like a dark tide. At this distance, they look almost abstract, like pieces on a game board. But as they draw closer, you start to make out details that make your blood run cold. The glint of steel, the forest of spear points, the banners that mark units you've heard whispered about in fearful tones around campfires. These aren't just soldiers. They're killers who've done this before, and they're coming for you. Your captain, a grizzled man with scars mapping his face like rivers, walks down the line shouting encouragement. But his words sound hollow, even to him. He knows what's coming. He's seen it before. The way his eyes avoid direct contact tells you everything you need to know about your chances. Then comes the sound that changes everything. The low, rumbling thunder of hundreds of horses charging across hard earth. The cavalry is moving, and even though they're not aimed at your section of the line, the ground beneath your feet starts to vibrate. It's a feeling that travels up through your legs and settles in your stomach like a cold stone. This isn't a movie. This isn't a game. This is really happening, and there's no pause button, no way to quit and try again and later. The archers loose their first volley, and the sky darkens with arrows. Not the clean, precise shots you've seen in films, but a cloud of death that blots out the sun. You raise your shield, and the impacts come like hailstones. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Some arrows stick in the wood. Others skip off your armor with sounds like hammers hitting anvils. But some find their mark. The man next to you screams and falls, clutching at the shaft protruding from his thigh. His blood spatters across your boots, warm and sticky and utterly real. Now you understand why veterans have that hollow look. It's not just what they've done. It's what they've seen, what they've heard, what they've smelled. The human mind wasn't designed to process this level of violence and chaos. Every instinct you have is screaming at you to run, to drop your weapons and flee back to safety. But there is no safety, not here, not now. The enemy line crashes into yours with a sound like the world breaking, metal on metal, metal on wood, metal on bone. The carefully organized formation dissolves into a writhing mass of bodies, all pushing and stabbing and dying. You find yourself pressed so tightly against the man in front of you that you can smell his fear sweat through his armor. Someone behind you is pushing forward, someone else is falling backward, and suddenly you're not standing on solid ground anymore, but on a carpet of bodies, some dead, some still moving, all slippery with blood, and other things you don't want to think about. Your sword, which felt so natural in practice, now feels impossibly heavy. Every swing is a monumental effort, and you're not even sure you're hitting anything. The blade catches on armor, on bone, on the thick leather jerkins that offer pathetic protection against steel. Each impact sends shock waves up your arm that your training never prepared you for. Real combat isn't about technique, it's about endurance. And you're already running out. The noise is beyond description. Men screaming in pain, in rage, in terror. The clash of weapons creates a constant metallic symphony that drowns out thought itself. Orders are being shouted, but you can't make them out over the chaos. Someone yells your name, but when you turn to look, you can't see who it was through the press of bodies and the narrow slit of your helmet. Then there's the smell. Movies never capture this. The metallic scent of blood, yes, but also the stench of men who've lost control of their bowels in terror. The smoke from burning equipment. The sour smell of vomit from soldiers whose nerves have finally snapped. All of it mixing together into an olfactory assault that makes your eyes water and your stomach churn. You try to remember your training, but training was conducted in controlled conditions with blunted weapons and rules. Here, there are no rules. A man comes at you not with practiced sword forms, but with desperate, wild swings aimed at any part of you he can reach. His eyes are wide with panic, and you realize he's just as terrified as you are. Neither of you is a warrior. You're both just trying to survive the next few seconds. Your shield arm is going numb from the constant impacts. Your sword feels like it weighs 100 pounds. Every breath is a struggle inside the metal cage of your helmet, and the padding that seemed comfortable this morning is now soaked with sweat and chafing against your skin. You can feel blisters forming on your feet from the ill-fitting boots, but there's no time to adjust anything, no moment to rest or recover. This is just the beginning. You've been fighting for maybe 10 minutes, and already your body is failing you. Your muscles are screaming for oxygen that your constricted breathing can't provide. Your vision is starting to blur from exhaustion and the salt sting of sweat running into your eyes. And this battle could go on for hours. The man next to you, the one who was joking nervously just an hour ago about what he'd do with his share of the loot, is on the ground now, clutching at a wound in his side that's pumping blood between his fingers. He's calling for his mother, not in the heroic way of movie death scenes, but in the broken, desperate way of a child who's realized he's in too deep and just wants to go home. You want to help him, but you can't. Someone else is coming at you now, and if you don't focus, if you don't fight, you'll be on the ground next to him. So you step over your friend's body, because that's what survival means here. You leave behind pieces of your humanity with every step, every swing, every moment you choose to keep breathing while others don't. The ground beneath your feet is no longer earth, but a slippery mess of mud and blood and worse things. Every step threatens to send you sprawling, and falling in this chaos means death. Men who trip don't get back up. They disappear under the trampling feet of those still standing, their screams cut short by the weight of armored bodies pressing down on them. Your water ran out long ago, and your mouth feels like it's full of cotton. The salt taste of your own blood mingles with the metallic taste of fear. You've bitten your tongue without realizing it, and every swallow brings the warm copper flavor that makes your stomach rebel again. This is what real combat is, not the choreographed dance of movie fights, but a grinding, exhausting, terrifying ordeal that breaks men's minds as surely as it breaks their bodies. And you haven't even reached the worst part yet, because in a few minutes, when the enemy cavalry finally turns toward your section of the line, when those massive war horses come thundering down like an avalanche of muscle and steel, you'll understand why experienced soldiers sometimes just lay down their weapons and wait for death. Sometimes surrender isn't cowardice. Sometimes it's the only sane response to insanity. But we're not there yet. Right now, you're still standing, still fighting, still believing you might see another sunset. The question is, how much longer can your body and mind hold out against the relentless assault of medieval warfare? The answer comes sooner than you expect. A horn sounds somewhere in the distance, and the enemy formation begins to shift. You watch in growing horror as a wedge of heavy cavalry breaks away from their main line. These aren't the desperate farmers fighting around you. These are professional killers mounted on beasts bred for war. The horses alone are terrifying. Each one weighs over 1,000 pounds of muscle and bone, trained to bite and kick and trample. Their riders sit high in their saddles like death gods, lances couched and ready. From this distance, they look like a moving forest of spear points. But as they begin their charge, individual details emerge that make your knees weak. The lead rider's lance is 12 feet of ash wood tipped with steel, designed to punch through armor like it's made of parchment. His horse's hooves throw up clods of earth with each thundering step, Behind him, 20 more knights follow in perfect formation, their weapons glinting in the pale morning sun. They're not screaming or shouting. They're silent, professional, and that silence is more terrifying than any war cry. You have perhaps 30 seconds before they reach your section of the line. The men around you begin to break. Not all at once, but in ones and twos. A young soldier to your left simply drops his spear and starts running. An older man falls to his knees and begins praying frantically. Someone behind you vomits inside his helmet, the sound wet and horrible in the confined space. Your captain is shouting orders, trying to reform the line, but his words are lost in the growing panic. Hold the line. But how do you hold against 1,000 pounds of charging warhorse? How do you stand firm when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to flee? The ground is shaking now, not just vibrating, but actually shaking like an earthquake. The cavalry is 50 yards away, 40, 30. You can see the foam around the horses' bits, the determination in the riders' eyes behind their helmet slits. These men have done this before. They know exactly how this ends. 20 yards. You raise your spear with trembling hands, trying to remember the formations you practiced. But practice was against stationary targets, not against a wall of steel and horseflesh bearing down on you at full gallop. Your spear point wavers in the air, and you realize your arms are shaking so badly you can barely hold the weapon steady. 10 yards. The lead horse's eyes are wild, rolling white with excitement and training. Its rider leans forward in his saddle, lance aimed directly at your chest. Time seems to slow and accelerate at the same time. You can see individual links in the knight's chainmail, the scratches on his helmet, the mud splattered on his horse's legs. 5 yards. This is it. This is where you discover what you're really made of. The impact comes like the end of the world. The knight's lance takes the man next to you full in the chest, lifting him clean off his feet and carrying him backward into the ranks behind. The horse crashes into the line like a battering ram, its shoulder catching you and sending you spinning into the mud. Your spear goes flying, your shield tears from your grip, and suddenly you're on your back, looking up at a sky full of hooves and steel. The world becomes a kaleidoscope of terror. Horses screaming, men dying, the wet sound of steel finding flesh. You roll desperately to avoid being trampled, but there's nowhere to go. Bodies are falling all around you, some from lance wounds, others simply crushed under the weight of the cavalry charge. You scramble to your knees just in time to see a war horse bearing down on you. Its rider has lost his lance but drawn his sword, a 3-foot length of steel that catches the light as he raises it overhead. You have no weapon, no shield, no protection except the mail shirt that suddenly feels as thin as cloth. This is how you die, not in glorious single combat, not defending something noble, but scrambling in the mud like a rat while a professional killer ends your life with practiced efficiency. The sword starts its downward arc, and you close your eyes. But death doesn't come. Instead, you hear a wet thud and a scream. When you open your eyes, the knight is toppling from his saddle, a crossbow bolt protruding from his neck. His horse, suddenly riderless, veers away from you and crashes into another part of the melee. You don't have time to feel relief. Another horse is coming, This one, with its rider still firmly in the saddle, you grab for anything, any weapon, and your fingers close around a broken spear shaft. It's only 3 feet long, and the point is chipped. But it's all you have. The rider sees you and turns his mount in your direction. He's not rushing this time. He knows you're beaten, knows you have nowhere to run. He's taking his time, savoring the moment. This is sport to him. You're not a warrior to be respected, just prey to be finished off. Your broken spear feels impossibly light in your hands. 3 feet of splintered wood against a mounted knight in full armor. The mathematics of your situation are brutally clear, but something inside you refuses to just lie down and die. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's just animal desperation. But you plant your feet and raise your pathetic weapon. The knight laughs. Actually laughs. The sound is muffled by his helmet, but still audible over the chaos of battle. To him, this is amusing. A peasant with a stick thinking he can fight a professional warrior. He spurs his horse forward at a trot, not even bothering to charge. Why rush? You're not going anywhere. His sword is already in his hand, held casually at his side like he's out for a pleasant ride. This is routine for him, just another day's work. But as he closes the distance, something changes in his posture. Maybe it's the way you're standing, still upright despite everything. Maybe it's something he sees in your eyes. Professional killers learn to read their opponents quickly, and what he's reading now makes him sit up straighter in his saddle. You're not running. You're not begging. You're not even praying. You're just standing there, holding your broken spear, waiting for him to come close enough. It's probably stupidity rather than bravery, but he can't tell the difference from horseback. He raises his sword, and you see your opening. It's not much of one. You'll probably die anyway. But in the split second, when he's committed to his swing, when he can't change direction or pull back, you have one chance. You dive forward under the horse's neck, driving your broken spear upward with every ounce of strength you have left. The chipped point finds a gap in the knight's armor, right where his leg meets his torso. It's not a killing blow, but it's enough to make him scream and jerk backward in his saddle. The horse, feeling its rider's sudden movement, rears and spins. The knight, off balance and in pain, tumbles from the saddle and crashes to the ground with a sound like a bell falling downstairs. His armor, which protected him while mounted, now traps him on his back like an overturned turtle. For a moment, you stare at each other. The great knight, the professional killer, helpless on his back. You, the peasant with the broken spear, standing over him. The roles have reversed in an instant. His helmet has come off in the fall, and you can see his face clearly for the first time. He's younger than you expected, maybe 30, with brown hair and ordinary features. Without the armor and the horse and the aura of invincibility, he looks like someone you might meet in a tavern. Just a man, scared and hurt, and suddenly very mortal. He's reaching for his dagger, but the movement is clumsy. Your spear thrust damaged something important, and his left side isn't working properly. You have seconds to act before he recovers enough to defend himself. This is the moment that separates soldiers from civilians. Not the fighting, not the training, not the equipment. This moment when you're standing over a helpless enemy and have to decide what kind of person you really are. In the stories, this is where the hero shows mercy, where nobility shines through and honor prevails. But this isn't a story. This is a battlefield, and mercy is a luxury you can't afford. While you're hesitating, other enemies are fighting their way toward you. The knight's companions will be looking for him, and if you let him live, he'll recover and kill you or someone else before the day is over. You raise the broken spear above your head. The knight sees it coming and closes his eyes. He's not begging, not pleading for his life. Professional soldiers understand the rules of this game. He would do the same to you without hesitation. But as you prepare to drive the spear downward, you hear something that stops you cold. Somewhere in the chaos of battle, someone is calling your name, not shouting orders or crying for help, but actually calling your name. Someone who knows you, someone from your old life before this nightmare began. You turn toward the voice, and that moment of distraction is all the knight needs. His dagger finds your leg just below the knee, slipping between the links of your mail like it was meant to be there. The pain is immediate and overwhelming, not the clean hurt of stories, but a grinding, nauseating agony that drops you to one knee. The knight rolls away and struggles to his feet, still favoring his injured side, but mobile enough to be dangerous. He's lost his sword in the fall, but he still has the dagger, and at close range, that's all he needs. You try to stand, but your wounded leg won't support your weight. The knight sees your weakness and smiles grimly. The tables have turned again. Now you're the one who's helpless, and he's the one with the weapon. He advances slowly, savoring your helplessness. Blood seeps through your mail where his dagger found its mark, and each heartbeat sends fresh waves of pain up your leg. You can feel the warmth spreading, soaking into the padding beneath your armor. The metallic smell of your own blood mingles with the battlefield stench that's already burned itself into your memory. Your broken spear lies just out of reach, knocked away when you fell. The knight sees you looking at it and kicks it further away with casual cruelty. He's in no hurry now. You're not going anywhere on that leg, and he knows it. But as he raises his dagger for the killing blow, something crashes into him from the side. Another body, another fighter from your line, who somehow broke free of his own battle long enough to tackle your would-be killer. The two men go down in a tangle of limbs and steel, rolling in the blood-soaked mud. You don't wait to see who wins. Using your spear shaft as a crutch, you drag yourself toward the edge of the melee, away from the worst of the fighting. Every step sends lightning bolts of agony through your wounded leg, but staying here means certain death. The battle rages around you like a living thing, constantly shifting and changing. What started as organized formations has devolved into a dozen smaller fights. Individual struggles for survival scattered across the field. You stumble past scenes that will haunt your dreams forever. A boy no older than 16 sits against a broken wagon wheel, holding his entrails in his hands and staring at them with the detached curiosity of someone whose mind has snapped. An older man crawls through the mud calling for water in a voice so hoarse it's barely human. Your leg gives out completely and you collapse behind an overturned cart. The wood is splintered with arrow holes and stained with blood from previous occupants who sought the same illusory shelter. You press your back against it and try to catch your breath, but the air feels thick and wrong, like trying to breathe through wet cloth. From your new vantage point, you can see the larger shape of the battle, and what you see destroys what little hope you had left. Your side is losing badly. The careful formations that looked so impressive this morning are broken and scattered. Men are running in all directions, some toward the enemy, some away, most just running without any destination in mind. The enemy cavalry has reformed and is preparing for another charge. You watch in numb horror as they wheel their horses around, lances lowered, ready to sweep through the remnants of your line like a scythe through wheat. There's nothing organized enough left to resist them. It won't be a battle this time. It'll be a slaughter. A horn sounds from your own side, 3 long blasts that echo across the field. The call to retreat. Finally, someone with authority has accepted what's been obvious for the last hour. But retreat is easier ordered than executed. How do you retreat when you can barely walk? How do you outrun cavalry when your leg is pouring blood into your boot? Around you, the survivors are trying to disengage from their individual fights. Some succeed, breaking away and stumbling toward the distant tree line where safety might await. Others aren't so lucky. The enemy has no intention of letting anyone escape cleanly. They press their attacks, cutting down fleeing men with the ruthless efficiency of experienced killers. You try to stand again, using the cartwheel for support, but the moment you put weight on your wounded leg, white-hot pain explodes behind your eyes. You bite down hard on your tongue to keep from crying out, tasting fresh blood. The wound is worse than you thought. The knight's dagger found something important, and now your leg is more liability than asset. A group of your own men stumbles past, supporting each other as they retreat. You call out to them, but your voice is lost in the chaos. Either they don't hear you, or they can't afford to stop for a wounded man who'll only slow them down. The mathematics of survival are brutally simple. Every minute they spend helping you is a minute the enemy cavalry gets closer. You watch them disappear into the smoke and dust, and for the first time since the battle began, true despair settles over you like a shroud. This is how it ends. Not in glorious combat, not defending something meaningful, but alone and forgotten behind a broken cart while the battle flows around you like a tide. The cavalry charge begins with that same earth-shaking thunder you heard before, but this time you're not standing in formation with other men. You're just a wounded observer watching death approach on horseback. The sound grows louder, closer, until it drowns out even your own heartbeat. They sweep past your hiding place like a storm, their horses' hooves throwing up clouds of dirt and worse things. You press yourself against the cart and pray they don't notice you, but prayer feels hollow in a place like this. If there are gods watching this slaughter, they're either powerless to stop it or they simply don't care. One rider breaks away from the group, his horse dancing sideways as he scans the area for survivors. His lance is gone, probably broken in the charge, but his sword is still sharp and his eyes are still hungry. He spots you behind the cart and turns his mount in your direction. There's nowhere to run. Your leg won't carry you, and even if it would, you can't outrun a warhorse. You grip your broken spear shaft and prepare for the end, but the knight doesn't charge. Instead, he dismounts and approaches on foot, sword held casually at his side. He says something in a language you don't understand, probably asking if you surrender. When you don't respond, he shrugs and raises his weapon. But before he can strike, an arrow sprouts from his chest like a deadly flower. He looks down at it in surprise, as if he can't quite believe what he's seeing, then topples forward into the mud. You spin around to see where the arrow came from and spot a figure in the trees at the edge of the field. One of your own archers, probably. Someone who found a good position and stayed to cover the retreat. The shot saved your life, but the archer is already moving, melting back into the forest before enemy reinforcements can spot him. The fallen knight's horse stands nearby, reins dragging in the dirt. It's a beautiful animal, a destrier worth more than most men earn in a lifetime. Right now, it's also your only chance of survival. If you can somehow get into the saddle, you might be able to reach the safety of the woods before more enemies arrive. But mounting a war horse with a wounded leg is like trying to climb a mountain with broken hands. The stirrup hangs at shoulder height, impossibly far above your current capabilities. Every attempt to lift your injured leg sends fresh waves of agony through your body, and the horse, sensing your weakness, shies away from your clumsy efforts. You're still struggling with the stirrup when you hear voices approaching. Enemy soldiers, probably looking for their missing knight. They're speaking in low, urgent tones and getting closer by the second. If they find you here, wounded and helpless, they'll finish what their comrade started. Desperation gives you strength you didn't know you possessed. You grab the saddle horn with both hands and haul yourself up, ignoring the screaming protest from your leg. Your vision goes white with pain, but somehow you manage to throw yourself across the horse's back. It's not graceful, and you're lying across the saddle like a sack of grain instead of sitting upright like a proper rider, but you're mounted. The horse, feeling your weight, starts moving without being asked. It knows the sounds of battle, knows that standing still in a place like this means death. It breaks into a trot that sends fresh jolts of agony through your wounded leg with every step. But you don't care. You're moving, putting distance between yourself and the nightmare behind you. The voices fade as you ride deeper into the woods, but you don't slow down until the sounds of battle are completely gone. Only then do you risk a look back at the field where you nearly died. Smoke rises from a dozen fires, and carrion birds are already circling overhead. The battle is over, but the dying will continue for hours as wounded men slowly bleed out in the mud. You survived against all odds, against logic and probability and the simple mathematics of medieval warfare. You survived, but survival comes with a price that movies and games never mention. The images burned into your memory, the sounds that will wake you screaming from sleep, the knowledge of what you're capable of when death is reaching for you. This was just one battle, one afternoon in a war that could drag on for years, and you barely lasted an hour before you were crawling behind a cart, praying for someone to save you. The men who do this for a living, who march from battlefield to battlefield season after season, are either saints or monsters. There's no middle ground in a world where survival means stepping over your friend's body to reach the enemy. Your leg throbs with each heartbeat, reminding you that even surviving comes with permanent costs. The wound will heal probably, but it'll never be quite right. You'll walk with a limp for the rest of your life, a constant reminder of the day you learned what real violence looks like. The horse carries you deeper into the forest, away from the screams and the smoke and the terrible clarity of combat. But you can't outrun what you've seen, what you've done, what you've become. The battlefield has marked you, changed you in ways that won't show on the outside, but will echo through every quiet moment for the rest of your day. Behind you, the cleanup begins. The victors will strip the dead of anything valuable, leaving naked corpses to rot in the sun. The wounded will beg for mercy or a quick death, and most will receive neither. Families will search for sons and fathers and brothers among the tangled bodies, and too often they'll find them. This is medieval warfare, not the sanitized version of stories and songs, but the raw, grinding reality of it. A place where courage means nothing without luck, where skill is meaningless without endurance, and where survival is just the first step toward a lifetime of haunted sleep and nervous glances at shadows. You thought you could handle it. You thought you were ready. But no one is ever ready for this. No one can be. The human mind wasn't designed to process this level of violence and chaos and meaningless death. The forest closes around you like a green sanctuary. But even here, even in safety, you can't escape the truth that's been burned into your soul. You wouldn't last a minute on a medieval battlefield. And now, you know why. You slump forward in the saddle, your body finally allowing itself to feel the full weight of what just happened. The adrenaline that kept you moving, kept you alive, is draining away like water through a broken dam. In its place comes a bone-deep exhaustion that makes your limbs feel like lead. The horse beneath you seems to sense your condition. It slows from a trot to a walk, picking its way carefully through the underbrush. You don't guide it. You couldn't if you wanted to. Your hands shake so violently you can barely maintain your grip on the reins. The simple act of staying upright in the saddle requires every ounce of concentration you have left. Your wounded leg has gone numb, which should be a relief, but somehow makes everything worse. You can't tell if it's still bleeding, can't assess how bad the damage really is. All you know is that it's swollen tight against your mail. And when you try to shift position, fresh waves of nausea wash over you. But it's not just the physical wounds that are destroying you, it's the memories that keep flooding back in vivid, unwanted detail. The sound the night made when your spear found its mark. The weight of that dying boy's blood on your boots. The way your friend called for his mother as his life leaked out between his fingers. You've crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. You've killed a man, maybe more than one. In the chaos of battle, it's impossible to know for certain how many of your desperate strikes found their target. But you remember the feeling when your broken spear punched through that knight's armor. The way his body jerked and stiffened, the look of surprise in his eyes as he realized he was dying. That man had a name. He had a family somewhere, people who loved him, who are waiting for him to come home from this war. Instead, he's lying in the mud with your weapon in his side, food for the crows. You tell yourself it was necessary, that it or you that was him, you had no choice. But the rational part of your mind keeps being drowned out by the image of his face in that final moment. The forest around you is peaceful, almost absurdly so, after the hell you just escaped. Birds sing in the branches overhead, completely indifferent to the slaughter happening just a few miles away. Sunlight filters through the leaves in gentle patterns that should be beautiful, but somehow feel like mockery. How can the world be so calm when everything inside you is screaming? You try to focus on practical matters. You need to find water, need to clean and dress your wound before infection sets in. You need food, shelter, a safe place to rest and recover. But these simple survival tasks feel overwhelming when your hands won't stop shaking and your mind keeps replaying scenes of carnage. The horse stops at a small stream, lowering its head to drink. The sound of running water should be soothing, but instead it reminds you of other sounds. The wet gurgle of a man drowning in his own blood, the splash of bodies falling into the mud. Even something as innocent as a babbling brook has been corrupted by what you've witnessed. You slide from the saddle, more falling than dismounting, and collapse beside the stream. Your reflection in the water stops you cold. The face staring back doesn't look like you anymore. It's streaked with dirt and blood, both your own and others. Your eyes have a hollow 1,000-yard stare that you've seen in old soldiers, but never imagined wearing yourself. So there you sit by that quiet stream, staring at a stranger's face in the water, finally understanding what veterans mean when they talk about the war that never really ends. The battlefield may be miles behind you now, but it lives on in every shadow that makes you flinch, every sudden sound that sends your hand reaching for a weapon that isn't there. You thought you'd survive a medieval battlefield, but the truth is, no one really survives. They just carry the pieces forward, forever changed by the weight of what they've seen and done in the mud and blood of human conflict.